and welcome to the Teaching Corner. Today we're going to be talking about ABA therapy. So in our last two videos we talked about behavior and why certain behaviors occur, and then we talked about how we can effectively deal with that behavior. But sometimes before you can figure that out and what a child's motivation is for a particular kind of behavior, you have to do a little bit of investigation. So that's what applied behavioral analysis, or ABA therapy, helps us do. We look up behavior, we apply that knowledge after we've analyzed it, and then it helps us effectively deal with behavior. So behavior has the ABCs of behavior. So A stands for the antecedent. What was happening before the behavior that you didn't want to see occurred? Were we at recess? Was someone bullying someone else? Was it during math time? Was it a transition? Oftentimes, understanding what happened right before a behavior happened will help you understand the motivation behind a particular behavior. B is the behavior itself. What exactly did the student do? How was that different from before? How was that the same? And you can chart and graph this over a period of time. Then C is consequence. Sometimes this is just as important as the behavior itself. What happened right after the student exhibited a particular behavior? If they were seeking attention, did everybody in the classroom laugh? Did the teacher scold them? If they were trying to avoid doing math homework and they ran out of the classroom, did they get sent to the principal's office? Was that behavior reinforced? Now remember, what is reinforcing to us is not always reinforcing to someone else, and what is a punishment to us isn't necessarily a punishment to someone else. Maybe being sent to the principal's office actually reinforced the behavior or increased the likelihood that they'll do that again, than decreasing it because the student didn't find that a punishment. They wanted to get out of doing their math homework. So once you understand the ABCs of the behavior, you can then figure out what to do with the behavior. And in order to do this, you can do two different things. You can take ratio data or you can take incidence data. Oftentimes for something like this, it might be incidence data. So you might graph how many times in a particular day the student blurted out. Sometimes it's too difficult as a classroom teacher to do this on your own, and you may have to ask a special education teacher or someone else to come and observe a child for a particular period of time. And if you notice that you feel like this behavior is happening much more often during this part of the time, that's when you want them to observe. And they can either take tally marks of how often in like a 30-minute period a child blurted out, or how often the child ran out of the room. Or if you're doing it yourself and say it's something like blurting out or running out of the classroom, or whatever the behavior is, you can have a little sticky note and just put tally marks yourself to count how often it happens. Once you have a baseline and you know how often it happens throughout the day or throughout a particular time period, then you can set a goal. So let's say it happens 30 times in a day. Our goal might be to reduce it to 20 or to 15 or down to 10. So, we may not completely eradicate something, but we could at least reduce the incidences of how many times it happens, depending on what the particular behavior is. So ratio data is when you want to see like percentage of how often a child does something. That's really easy if you give a child a sheet and you can grade the sheet, but sometimes as teachers we do things orally. So if I want to see how often a child gets comprehension questions that I orally ask them out loud, I may put a slash mark like this for positive every time they get it correct and a minus mark every time they get it wrong. Then I can put on top how many they got correct out of the total number, divide those, and it'll give me a percentage. So understanding behavior, why they're doing it, helps us effectively deal with it. And I hope this video was helpful. If it was, like and subscribe, share it with others, and I'll see you later. Bye!